Vince Rudo has sent in a portion of the
Russo.
Bonkers Rudo. So I think he's a heel.
Oh.
He sent in a portion of the Bonkers World of Billy Jack Haynes in an old RF video shoot. Although I don't think it's a very old one. I think it's one of the more modern ones he did. So, do you want me to give? I mean, I can basically just say what he said because it's quite a few lines here. Or do you? I mean, you watched it. Why don't you take us through?
No.
What?
Read to me what he said.
Okay. Well, first off, before he starts talking about Bruiser Brody, he just casually, off the cuff, says that Vince McMahon ordered the killing of Nancy Argentino, Jimmy Snooker's girlfriend, in 1983, personally, somehow. And he also claims that he had more credit, and this is in the space of 2 minutes. He also claims Billy did that he had more credibility than everyone else in wrestling combined. And then he starts talking about the Iron Sheik getting the WWF belt from Backlund. He was a transitional champion, as you know, to Hulk Hogan. A few weeks later, he dropped it off. But then Billy says that Bruiser Brody was going to be coming in from Japan and was going to win the WWF title from Hulk Hogan. Now, when pressed on where he heard this, Billy Jack said something to the effect of, well, it's a fact. So, yeah. Well, I guess me is where you're getting it from. So anyway, and then he said the thought was that Vince saved his own neck from an ass whooping from Bruiser Brody for welching on this supposed deal of a WWF title by paying off Brody $50,000 in cash every year to placate him. And then he says, right after, this is a quote, right after Andy Gibb dies, as in the fourth BG who had a solo career with shadow dancing, Brody then gets stabbed and killed. And apparently...
What did Andy Gibb have to do with that? Just a timing?
Know. He just... Well, it wasn't even. It was the same year, but it wasn't even the same month. He just went, "Oh, Andy Gibb died," and then a few months later, Bruiser.
I don't get it.
Honestly, I don't get it either. Anyway, the point he's trying to make is that Brody got stabbed and killed because Vince McMahon had promised him. He was on Vince's orders because he didn't want to pay him $50,000 a year silence pay because he was going to win the WWF title or something. Anyway, your thoughts?
Well, didn't he say that the guy that he had killed him? Didn't he say Carlos Colon killed him?
I don't know what he said.
He didn't even have any of the stuff right.
No.
It's just, you've heard of inane, and in this case, it's insane ramblings of somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. Now, he reminds me of some guys you can get in a car with them and they're in their own world. I mean, and you can't debate them or argue with them. They're just going to keep coming back to their same answer. And invariably, whoever that says this, if you disagree with him, he'll get mad. So now he feels that you're trying to correct him when he is right. But it sounds vintage like the guy, really. Wasn't Billy Jack? And I've said a long time ago, the guy was a little bit off and had a bad temper. So the hair that he's got, didn't you tell me something about his hair?
Someone said it was a wig. Some of the later Billy Jack Haynes videos, that he was wearing a wig. Other people have said maybe not, but who knows? Who knows? I mean, maybe the wig glue seeped into his brain.
If he's wearing a wig, he needs to get his money back. Because that wig is the worst looking wig I've ever seen in my life.
And if it's his real hair, he needs to. Someone needs to.
Well, my
group GoFundMe.
My relation with Billy Jack, very, very brief, very quick, and I didn't spend a long time around him because he spent most of his time in Oregon, which I refused to go. I've been invited there, but I didn't go.
We'll end on this then. Have you ever heard of why Brody never really went to the WWF? I mean, he did some appearances there, but he never had any kind of run. So why not Brody? Tailor-made for Brody, it seems.
Yeah, it was. But maybe Bruno didn't want to work with him. You ever think that? The top baby faces didn't want to work with him. Brody
Maybe.
was okay. Brody was the king of Japan. And he was like almost unbeatable. So if they'd have got tape of Brody getting beat in New York, they could send it back to Japan, maybe a TV stations, but it would shatter his image in Japan. That's where he made his money. He wouldn't do a job anywhere but that they had TV cameras because he didn't want that footage getting mad. That's why he didn't want to do any. He didn't want to go under, even in Puerto Rico. Now I think he has, but not very much. So, and what was your question again?
Well, I sort of follow up about Puerto Rico. Who beat him in Puerto Rico? Do you remember?
I think, well, it was a screwed up finish, but I think it was Carlos. Because Carlos was the only one that beat any of those guys. Because he was, see, Invader, he always thought he was the number one babyface, but he was behind Carlos by quite a margin. And you could tell by talking to Carlos that he wasn't anywhere, any plans anywhere for him to move up to even challenge him. So, and your best thing there is when those guys get into a tiff, just stay out of it. You have nothing to do with it. Let them settle it, which it got settled. But that was a strange universe to move around into.
Final thing, and then we'll shut down the podcast, is would Bruiser Brody have ever made a good WWF champion, or was he just too unpredictable to sort of have that position?
I think he would have made a decent champ, but he only had one style, and that was stomp 'em, rump 'em. And it was all over oh, he'd have got over because went out in that crowd. Oh, he'd have got over like a son of a gun because he hadn't seen that. He'd have brought that Memphis style more to WWF at the time, because that's what they did in West Texas, in Texas style. You can do that. But I think he would have got over. But I think what he had, just looking at it from a distance, is internal opposition not to bring him in. They brought in Stan Hansen, right? And Brody was same style as Stan. They brought him in, but I don't think they trusted Brody for some reason. Now the deal with him and Invader go back, I don't know, maybe 15 years, because they brought him in one time and the Invader was there just working preliminary matches underneath. And apparently, according to what I've heard, they had told somebody that they're looking for their next Hispanic star. And they finally decided on who was the champion there for a long time. What was it?
Pedro?
Pedro Morales.
Yeah.
They were looking for their next Hispanic star. So he heard that. So he went out there with Brody. Well, that didn't go too well because Brody didn't give him anything. They just beat him up. So he made him look like crap in front of the office personnel and Vince. And he never forgot that. So when it come time for him to work with him, I don't know, they had another argument before that. So it resulted in him stabbing Brody that night. I don't know, it goes into, when you start talking about that, you start talking about who said what, and who shot John and all this. I hate it happened, but it did. But it didn't happen just out of the clear blue. There was a background to it. And Also, Brody had said that he wanted to buy into Puerto Rico because he had the money, because that Japan money was big for him. And he was going to buy the shares that were owned by Gorilla Monsoon. And if he'd have taken over, he sent word, he said that he was going to fire Invader. So when you threaten his job, and I'm not saying it was justified, but there was a reason for the trouble that night.
Or it was Vince McMahon who ordered the hit, according to Billy Jack Haynes on his own.
I bet it was. I bet it was, or either Gorilla Monsoon, probably one or the other.